Good evening. I'm so happy you're joining us for Good News on Entertainment tonight. I'm Carley Boyette. A little later in the show, we're going to be featuring a fun video game for kids that is truly unlike anything else on the market. But first tonight, one of the things I love so much about this show is how many talented and wonderful storytellers I get to meet that are wanting to share how God is changing lives. And one organization in particular is doing a stellar job. I Am Second is a storytelling organization presenting compelling short films and written content that provides a message of hope and faith from both celebrities and everyday people.
It begins and ends with the central story of humanity, the single greatest drama ever to unfold, a love story of epic proportions, told through the lens of individual narratives in a simple, intimate film. A white chair, a black room, an honest account of a changed life, God's grace on display with raw authenticity and avant-garde style. Superstar athletes and the beautiful people, war heroes and rock stars, rappers, call girls, scholars, misfits, and politicians. You and me. Stories from every crack and crevice of society, connecting communities and opening minds to a revolution of hope. Bold advertising creates intrigue and curiosity leads to a compelling cinematic website. 1.5 billion media impressions in the launch market generates nearly 1 million site visits. And then it goes viral. New cities come on board and the momentum swells. 5, 10, and soon countless millions are impacted in over 200 countries worldwide. One story at a time.
For more on this wonderful organization and how they are offering real stories and real hope, here is my conversation with the Vice President of I Am Second. So we have a lot to get into, but how do you best describe what I Am Second is?
I try to keep it as simple as possible. I Am Second lifts up Jesus through storytelling and provides clear pathways for people to take their next steps. And it's as simple as it is. It was built, though, on the idea of really how can we lift up Jesus and spread that as quickly and easily as possible to the people that we come in contact with.
But I guess take us back to the beginning, and because you kind of launched this with some pretty big names right off the bat. Was that kind of the goal, was to get these celebrities behind you first?
Well, that was part of the strategy. It wasn't all the strategy. Again, we launched in 2008, and what was great about that is that video streaming at that time was still fairly infant. YouTube was been out there a couple of years. Netflix had just been starting out. That MySpace was still one of the social media, outlets there that people were using. That's kind of the world that it was at that time. And so here we created a website where we could have streaming video, and not only because we were targeting the Dallas-Fort Worth region, we could feature people from this area. And so that's where we went to. We said, okay, who are believers in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that people would like to hear a little bit about their story? Because it's not being told in the mainstream media. It's not being told in other places, but here's a place where we could feature that and people could see an authentic representation of what living the Christian life was. We had Josh Hamilton of the Texas Rangers at the time. We had other Dallas Cowboy players, Jason Witten, Greg Ellis, Brady James. We brought in other people that weren't necessarily Dallas-Fort Worth, but they were known in Dallas-Fort Worth, like Brian Welch of the band Korn, and things like that we brought in and featured them alongside people from the area that maybe they didn't know who they were, but they were from the area. And these were people that were dealing with situations just like maybe the people down their neighborhood were. Divorce, abortion, that dealt through that situation, that remarriage, alcoholism, drug abuse, different things that people were seeing in their neighborhoods, in their friends. And this was a way to go ahead and to show how the love of God, the love of Jesus came into their life and transformed them from what they had been dealing with.
I'm such a fan of good quality storytelling. And what is so amazing with what your team does is it's a simple chair. There's not a whole lot of graphics and this and that. It really is just someone telling their heart. Obviously, you have to try. I'd imagine it might be hard editing some of the, the stories down. That's probably the most challenging thing. Because you also, it's nice, the timing of it. They're nice, they're long enough to where you can get a big picture, but they're not excessively long either. So I think you've hit a sweet spot with the timing as well. Would you agree?
Yes, I do believe so. And that was not necessarily by accident. I mean, we did a lot of testing even before we went out to film. We tested different options that we had, and we wanted to come up with a setup that we could use across the country, things that we didn't require a studio necessarily, that we could transport very easily. I mean, we've shot in people's homes, we've shot in squash courts, we've shot in hotel rooms, just wherever we would be able to arrange the interviews, we've been able to shoot. And it's because of the simple set. But in addition to that, we wanted to have a narrative that could have a nice story arc with it. But at the same time, you didn't have to commit 30 minutes, 45 minutes of, 2.5 hours to really get the heart of the story.
And I was telling you before we got started, it kind of reminds me of the "What would Jesus do" kind of tagline, back from when I was a kid. And I know people still use it today.
Mhm.
And what's your thought on that? And again, because if you go to some of the bigger celebrities, the athletes or whatever, you'll still find, I mean, it's so cool to see "I am second," in their bio. They are, want to let people know.
Oh, we have these wristbands. I don't know if you can see it, but we've got wristbands that we've had since day one, and they show up anywhere and everywhere. We'll see athletes that are playing in the games on the field and they're wearing them. Coaches on the sidelines, musicians that are out in their concerts, they're wearing them. People on the news. There was one situation where a guy was doing a live brain surgery on TV, and he was wearing it on his wristband, on his wrist there. And go figure, people have used it as inspiration, which is great. We have used it as a way for an individual to identify themselves as being committed to living out of faith, a life of faithfulness.
And it starts gospel conversations, and that is a passion of mine, and that's what should be the goal, is that we tell others. So if it spark, a conversation that leads to it being centered on Christ, I mean, what better way than that?
Absolutely. And, this is another interesting element. People don't really know this a lot, but I'm Second, while it started as an initiative here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and then quickly went national and international, it's also an initiative of our parent organization, which is E3 Partners Ministry. And E3 Partners for almost 40 years now has been on the mission field, a leading church planting missions organization. And so what we're able to do is to teach people and encourage people to start conversations with their friends, with people they just randomly meet, be able to present the gospel to those folks using simple tools that our organization has helped to train people on how to do, and then offer next steps of discipleship and even potentially engaging in missions yourself. And so it's a complete spectrum of opportunity for people to grow in their walk with Jesus.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask, how people can get involved. And I don't know if the goal, I'm thinking like, man, I'm thinking for youth. I mean, some of the subjects are pretty heavy. It's not all of them are kid friendly. But man, if we can start showing some of these conversations in Sunday school classes or in youth groups or what, I mean, I don't know, what's the thought on how to use these stories more than just kind of online, for somebody to watch really quick? I mean, how can we use them to really minister in the local church, like you said?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head on how to use the films. They can be used anywhere. We have groups that meet Friday mornings at their school, and it's student-led groups that use these to help start conversations. We have a discussion guide that is available for free on a download for every single or most every film that we offer online that people can download and use wherever in their small groups. It can be used in small groups at their homes or at churches. Youth groups use them all the time. They've been shown in services at various times. It just depends on how creative people want to be in using them. Just emailing a link to a friend, hey, I thought you might be interested in this, or this has helped me. I know you're going through something. This might help you. What we have found is that the films actually are the most effective for people who are in a situation where they don't know what to do. Maybe they have reached about the end of their rope, and they watch a film of somebody who is just like them, and then they see how that person's life has been transformed, and they say, well, I've tried everything. Maybe I should try this because it helped this person, or maybe I can do what they did. And that's where we have the most radical transformation stories that have come out of I Am Second over the years.
I was just going to ask, what has the response been like? I mean, I'm sure it's a little overwhelming.
Yeah, I would say this is that we hear many of these stories, but I think we've come to the conclusion that what we hear is just a small fraction of what is taking place. We will get, it is pretty wild. There have been people that we have approached here in recent years who we said, hey, we'd love to interview you about your faith story. And they say, wow, this is like coming full circle because I Am Second played a role in me coming to the Lord 12 years ago or 10 years ago. And we didn't know that. We had no way of knowing that, but they're able to go ahead and tell us that story.
Yeah.
And so those are things that really is very humbling to when somebody is able to point to a film that you had something to do with that helped to lead them to the Lord.
What's been the most popular ones, by the way?
Yeah, I hear that all the time. And it's hard to gauge popularity, but if you're talking about those that have been watched the most, you're probably talking about what you'd expect. The Duck Dynasty Robertson family, Mike Fisher and Carrie Underwood, the Gaines family, people with notoriety that have a lot of popularity to begin with have drawn the most views. That said, the Brian Welch film that we did, that first launch in 2008, that has staying power that people point to because it made it such an impact on people, and particularly not just in the US, but in places where the band had toured, Russia, other places around the world. Those are the ones we point to, but there's a lot of films that have been watched by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And
they're all important stories, but I was interested in, and I think because I come from the mainstream media side, like I get where those bigger names, when you hear them talking about their faith, because it's not something you hear very regularly. So I was, I'm one of those that I get, I'm like, yes, there's someone, that's being bold about their faith. Any a sneak peek of anybody you can say that may be coming in the future? I don't know if you can. I have to ask.
I do want to point out a couple of them that we've just released. This last month, we released a 3-part White Chair film series with the Tony family, and that may not mean anything to you, but it does to probably parents of kids that are ages 7 to 15 who follow Dude Perfect. And so Tyler Tony is one of the Dude Perfect members. And what he talks about, though, he gives a little background on Dude Perfect, but really it's a conversation with he and his wife. And they're talking about what they went through in their marriage when Dude Perfect really started to take over the life in their marriage and their family, and how that was splitting them apart. But what they had to do to go ahead and to bring things back together, which also then allowed Tyler, once he reconciled things in his heart and mind, to be able to include a gospel presentation at the end of all of their Dude Perfect tour shows. And, when you've got an arena full of kids and their parents who are attending these shows, and then they're sitting through a gospel presentation at the end, that's really huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that little fun one to see come to fruition. We just released this month another film with an individual who, after 6 years in the porn industry, his life was transformed, and now he is sharing the gospel, and he's ministering in a ministry organization. And again, it shows the radical transformation that Jesus can bring to lives.
Yeah. I love it all. I just love what your team is doing. I can't wait to see where it goes from here. Again, where is the best place for people to kind of find out more information, follow along? Because you all are kind of everywhere.
We
the
are.
website?
IamSecond.com
Okay.
is the website, and that's spelled out IAMSECOND.com. And people can go there and find 170 plus films, a short film.
Can you get your bracelet? I need a bracelet or a shirt.
We can get you one. Okay. We can get you one. Absolutely. But yes, you can find bracelets through on the site itself. Mm-hmm. And that is the best place, but you can find us on most social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, other places. And so you just put in IamSecond.com and you'll find us.
God bless you guys. This is so needed. Testimonies are so powerful, and I'm so excited to see how God is going to continue to be glorified for people willing to share their stories. So kudos to your team again. Just so excited. Thank you for spending some time with me today, and it's really been fun.
My pleasure.
They are constantly updating their website and social media pages, so make sure you check them out at IamSecond.com. Okay, now to that video game I was telling you about earlier. It's called Lightgliders. Their goal is to spread hope and purpose through fun and games. I love this. Zach Fay is the CEO and founder.
Lightgliders is a virtual world of Christian faith, games, and community. It encourages biblical faith, positive values, and meaningful conversations among kids and families. By offering fun gameplay, wholesome, uplifting content, and a safe online community experience on computers, tablets, and smartphones, Lightgliders provides a fresh way to engage the kids you care about. Kids spend a lot of time during their formative years being shaped by video games and screen time. Lightgliders redeems this time with gameplay adventures and Bible-based activities that encourage family connections throughout the week. Invest in the faith and values of the next generation. Give kids digital playtime with a powerful purpose. Join Lightgliders today, where faith and fun come together.
Well, Zach, it is so good to talk with you and pick your brain a little bit today, because I just think this is so needed. As a mom myself, as I told you before we got started, I know how much time kids are, spending, on screens. And as much as we want to say, yeah, let's pull back a little bit, I think there's also some great things that are happening that families may not even know about yet. So I'm so excited to kind of put a spotlight on what your team has been doing for several years now.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a joy to be here and to talk about Lightgliders.
Yeah, so how do you best describe, I guess, who's the target age that is best for this platform that you guys have built?
Sure, sure. So Lightgliders is a virtual world of Christian faith, games, and community that was designed for kids primarily ages 6 to 12. And it's also to be a resource for family discipleship. I'm a former youth pastor who spent countless hours with junior high and high school students. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish we could start younger. And so I started doing some research on kids, and I found out that the critical years to impact kids in the area of faith and values are before the teenage years. So I began looking for a culturally relevant and globally distributed way to encourage more conversations in the home about faith and values, and specifically the gospel of Jesus. And that search of cultural relevance and global distribution led me to digital games and screen time. I saw that kids were only spending more and more time in front of screens and playing digital games. And I thought to myself, this could be used for good. It doesn't have to be used for evil. Doesn't, I mean, it can be, and it is, and it doesn't have to just be used as, I think some of us just want a safe digital babysitter, and I think that's fine too. But this could also be used for great purposes. You could use screen time to transmit a biblical worldview and offer reflection questions that spark really transformative conversations in the home between kids and those who care about them the most.
Obviously, I've seen you, for a couple of years now and seen the company grow, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of others in this space yet. But obviously, you've been, at recent homeschool conventions. I know you're plugged in to kind of what's happening in the world around you. Do you see more of this content being produced and looked for? There's got to be a hunger for it.
There's definitely a hunger for it. I think it's one of those things where we don't know that we need it until it's too late, in the sense that I think now, especially since the COVID years have happened, most ministries and churches are saying, wow, we really need a digital strategy. We need something that, yes, it's obviously really important that we be doing things that are in person and face to face, but also we need to have a digital strategy as well, something that will encourage togetherness and connection. And it's strange to think because when it comes to screens, we think of, kind of isolation and we're kind of separating ourselves, but that's not the case anymore. There are actual, very real virtual experiences that are promoting positive imagination, connection, and in the case of Lightgliders, family discipleship.
So is this Lightgliders, is it something that churches can get involved in, whether it be their children's ministry or youth groups or whatnot, homeschool, I'd imagine, and then just regular families? Is there kind of different packages or different avenues on how they can help expose this to wherever our kids are?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we have different packages of signing up. You can sign up as an individual, you can sign up for a family, you can sign up for a group. We've gotten the most traction, I would say, from families, because that's where they're feeling the problem on a daily basis. And the problem is this: my kids want screen time. My kids want to play digital games, but I don't feel good about what's out there. I don't feel good about ads. Like, even YouTube today is dangerous because there's ads there. I don't feel good about microtransactions where you've got to pay another dollar every 5 minutes to get to the next level. So when it comes to screen time, we as parents, we really have to think critically about the issue and think about what's best for our kids and what's the right response. But if we do see, hey, we want to give this to them as a reward, or we want to give it to them as hopefully an opportunity to learn, well, there's resources like Lightgliders out there. Now, there's a lot of resources out there when it comes to education and learning. I don't know how many resources are out there when it comes to faith and Christian worldview. And so that's kind of where we stand apart.
What's your main message for parents watching, maybe grandparents watching as well? I'd imagine this is, I would think, a great gift for grandparents to give their families too. But what's your message, and how do you kind of best explain why families should get on board with Lightgliders?
Well, the message is this: it tells us in Deuteronomy 6 that we as parents are supposed to pass on love for God and obedience to Him to our children, and we're supposed to talk about it at bedtime and talk about it in our homes. And I'm a big believer that pivotal experiences and meaningful conversations are the very things that transform kids' lives. And so when I started doing some research on families, I saw that 85% of Christian parents want to impart faith and values into their kids, but over 90% feel ill-equipped to do so. It's almost like, hey, we want to do this, but we also want help. And so with Lightgliders, we were looking for a kid-first approach, something that would engage kids, that would also spark really important conversations in the home. So embedded in Lightgliders is a biblical worldview curriculum that's distributed each week. We teach creation, rebellion, redemption, restoration, all resting on the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And then within that are many, not only fun games and activities for the kids, but weekly lessons and reflection questions for the families. And as we've been at this for a while, we've learned that, there are some families that really want to take advantage of the discipleship resources inside of Lightgliders, and that is awesome. That's why we created it. And then there's a lot of families that are just thankful that there is a walled garden of safe, positive, and Christian digital gameplay and activities for their kids. And so ultimately what Lightgliders offers is a safe alternative that gives parents and grandparents peace of mind for their kids' screen time and digital gameplay.
What's the best? Is the website? Is it an app? Where do you go to send people to figure out what they need to download, what they need to do?
Great question. Yeah, the best thing to do is to go to www.lightgliders.com and then click sign up, and everyone can start a free trial. And then once you create your account, you can download the Lightgliders app in the Apple Store, Google Play Store, Amazon App Store. You can play on computers, tablets, smartphones. I mean, really, once you have your account, you can play on any of your devices. And, so it's a cross-platform product and with the goal of redeeming that screen time.
Bravo. Good job. I know this it has been a lot of work, especially when you're kind of the pioneer in this platform. And it's not like you have a whole lot of other things to say, oh, look, they're doing that well, so we can try to do this. But job well done. Keep it going. Again, as a mom myself with young kiddos at home, I know how much this is needed. And I'm excited to see just the gospel be presented in all these different avenues and platforms in 2023, and how we can use our gifts and kind of our knowledge to spread the gospel in different ways. So
that's exactly right. We're all on the same team, and we've got a mission.
God bless. We will be praying for you that this continues to spread and get bigger. And we look forward to hopefully checking in again a little bit later and seeing what's new and up the pipeline.
That sounds great, Carly. Thank you so much.
For more info, go to lightgliders.com. I hope you enjoyed tonight's show. I look forward to seeing you next week right here on your Christian Television Network.